So right now I ought to be live. It says the live video is starting. And I am looking for one of you out there in the virtual audience to let me know that you can see and hear me. And I don't know how that I will know that you can see and hear me because they have changed the stuff. Gary says he can see and hear me. Okay, so let me see. So Gary, you're on? Are you still on? No, are you still on? Oh yeah, okay, good. So I still can tell 3 people are on. Okay, good. Let me just see if I can see anything that anybody says.
David
No.
Vincent commented.
All right, folks, so that, why can't I see what people are saying? Let me just, well, more people are coming on. Oh, I have to go all the way down here. That means I can't see myself. Okay, good morning, David. Good morning, Angela. All right, so you each have won a special spiritual mind treatment. So that's fabulous. Let me know for what you would like me to treat. That would be good. I'm going to put this down. Let me see. Let me hang on. Maybe if I minimize it. Minimize it. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think I've got it. Facebook changed things, folks. That's enough to make you know what. All right, so let me do a special spiritual mind treatment. Hello from South Surica. I bet Africa. Hello, Damaris. Good. And Michael's here too. Michael and Arlene, who are about to move. So everybody get your we love yous into them. I think they'll be with us for physically for a few more weeks. And then virtually, of course, always. All right, so here's a spiritual mind treatment. What would we like me to treat for?
Peace.
Clarity and peace. I'm hearing from the virtual audience. Okay, so there we go. This word is being spoken for each one. All right, come on. There is God. God is crystal clear. It knows itself. I am that I am is what it knows. What more could it possibly say? It being all, knows all, and this self-knowing is the cause to creating everything that is. And so absolutely everything in this universe or that could ever be in this universe is what that divine mind, this one God, is contemplating. And that infinite mind is contemplating itself right now. And each one here now is the result. Each one is the result of the divine knowing. I am that I am. There is nothing missing in this divine knowing. There is no, I am missing a little bit of the I am that I am, or I am that I am not so much. So all of those beliefs that one might be experiencing because one is believing that there is something missing, lacking, or limited in what the divine mind is thinking about him or herself is all by this word erased, evaporated, and vanished. Any belief that this life is too good, too fine, too sweet, too magnificent for this great and glorious God to be contemplating it in a particular way for each one is just not the truth. Because that infinite presence does contemplate itself in all that loving care to detail, with all that attention, and each one is the manifestation of that divine's eternal and complete, thorough contemplation. And with all that this infinite mind is contemplating, each and every detail of that contemplation has its divine quality of crystal clarity. It knows everything. And so any belief that things are too much to be understood, things are overwhelming, that there is too much sensory information coming in to be able to process any other remaining belief, experience, or feeling in being overwhelmed, overstimulated, or oversensitive, is all by this word erased, evaporated, and vanished, because the truth is the divine does not experience itself from its creation to within. It is always the divine knowing, I am that I am, all the way out, projecting all the way out into expression. And so that is the truth of each one here. With that contemplation of the infinite good within, each one has now its crystal clarity. Each one has contact and an experience of its eternal peace. The peace that passeth all human understanding, because it is the peace that precedes all human understanding. And that which each one understands now is that God is right here, right now, at the center of each one's being. And so all personal experience of being reactive or responsive or aware of or sensing all that is external and being bounced around by it or confused by it is all vanished as each one's perspective joins that divine outlook. The great I am that I am, from its altitude of high consciousness, seeing all that is as a reflection of all that this infinite mind knows about itself. There is nothing that is being projected from this infinite mind that is not known before that projection within this infinite mind. It is as if this infinite mind is playing within an infinite dollhouse of all life, being aware of the placement of everything and arranging everything and unaffected by all that is arranged. This is the altitude, the consciousness, that perspective that each one takes right now with regard to their world, so that everything in their world, their home, their car, their relationships, their body, their experience, their environment, their work, everything that is there is already known in the consciousness of I am that I am. And its perfect placement in thought is made there. This precedes that which is outpictured. And so each one is able to assume that position of producer, director, looking upon everything that is placed within one's world, and to see how it is a direct projection of that which had already been contemplated within. And so there are no surprises. And any belief that there's something wrong with them, any fear that there might be something wrong with somebody, any belief in surprises, any belief that it's not possible to know everything that there is to know about oneself, all human race approach of denying an aspect of oneself, all self-rejection, all believing that anything about oneself is just too bad or too horrible, it's all erased, evaporated, and vanished. And the realization that with the great I am that I am, everything that is projected from that great I am that I am. And so each one is able to take that same position in their personal, infinite world of expression and declare that everything is a projection of that great I am that each one is knowing within. And so as a result, each one is knowing peace and harmony and order. There are no surprises. Everything is exactly where each thing was placed in consciousness. There is no need to delude oneself, to be separated from oneself. All belief in the possibility of memory loss, or that one even needs a memory in order to know how things are ordered in infinite mind, is all erased, evaporated, and vanished. All that over focus and attention and belief in the arrangement of the externals as being important or as being causal, and therefore to be feared or controlled or manipulated, or to be filled, to have anxiety about, or to have an excessive observation of, is all by this word, erased, evaporated, and vanished. Each one is the great I am that I am, knowing its truth, and knowing that everything is in its harmonious place. All is well, heaven is present, everything is in good order, and therefore everything is operating in perfect right order and divine right action. And each one is the master, the director, the script writer, the author, as well as the enjoyer and the experiencer of that which is known from within. As each one looks upon his or her world with all that is there, each one is able to connect to that truth within each one's heart, which is always seeing and recognizing something in the outer as being, ah, yes, I am that I am, is cause to that being there. Each one is empowered, each one is uplifted, each one is inspired, each one is the master, and all is well. I am grateful this is truth, and I release this to that divine law, grateful it's done. We agree by saying together, and so it is. Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, we all go, yeah, good. All right, here we go. Reverend Rich is taking us away.
I am opening, I am opening, my heart is ready to receive. I am opening, I am opening, my heart is ready to receive. I am opening, I am opening, my heart is ready to receive.
And so let's take a moment and get clear about what we're ready to receive. And I always advise going in with your heart, so that what you are open to receiving is foreshadowed by that which is felt in your heart. And so connecting with your heart, whatever is a desire within there, know that in some way the intention of that desire is to be fulfilled, and that it is an omen of the fulfillment to come. And so let's open to that now and receive the good that is waiting for us. And the fact that it is waiting for us is the desire in the heart is already there. Let's know this is the truth and accept it and agree, and so it is.
I am opening. I am opening. My heart is ready to receive. I am opening. I am opening. My heart is ready to receive.
Good morning. Our hearts are ready to receive. I'm Jon Heron. I'm a licensed practitioner here at the Center for Spiritual Living, Princeton. And we are a loving, healing, and inclusive community which teaches and practices the principles of the science of mind for the well-being and spiritual growth of ourselves and the world. So let's see, a couple of announcements to start off with. I know that Wednesday night, Susan Neat, our practitioner and my dear friend, is having a class. You could call it a class or a spiritual session, a spiritual opportunity at 7:30, where she's doing world work according to Joel Goldsmith and opening with some focus on gratitude. And these are a wonderful opportunity to just spend some time with yourself in a higher mode of consciousness, guided, sharing with other people who are making that same choice. And when I stand here and talk about welcoming, that's part of what I think about this community of welcome. Because you are now part of a community, one person in South Africa, another person in Thailand, people all over the US who are focused right at this moment on being present in spirit, whatever that means to you, right? Being present in spirit. And that's why we're here. We're not here for anything else. So this week I've been thinking in a class I've been taking on the writings of Ernest Holmes, who's our founder, the writer of the Science of Mind textbook. And he said in one place that if you don't have time for a lot of spiritual practice, if you only have time to do one treatment, make that treatment be that your light shines. And I thought, what an interesting thing to say. So what he's saying that, to me, that each one of us has a story to tell of who we are. Make sure you're telling that story. If you do nothing else in the world, this is who you are as an expression of higher truth, of his expression of truth. Find out what that is and be that. Do that. And that brought me to something that I've been thinking about a lot. So some of you know that I'm a theater director. And the first question I ask myself when I am assigned to direct a show is, what's the story I'm telling with the story I'm telling? Right? The outer story is whatever the playwright gave us. But what's the inner story that I'm telling? And that's the question I ask myself. You may have been aware that my home was destroyed in a flood a month ago. Literally destroyed. Right? So my question is, what's the story I'm telling about this story I'm telling? I could tell the story, and it's a fact. Just destroyed. Right? But there's another story, a story of incredible kindness, incredible generosity of people. That's also a story that I can tell. What we learn from the science of mind is that the story we tell about the story we're telling is what outpictures as our life. Right? There are moments when I am just really bereft. I lost the space that I created that gives me comfort in life. Well, what's the story I'm telling about that? I'm somebody who cares deeply about living a spiritually focused life. That's what we teach here in the Science of Mind. So is that where I'm getting my comfort from? Is that the story I'm going to tell myself? Because the more I tell myself that story, that I'm bereft and I lost everything, that's what I'm creating in my world. The stories we tell about the stories we're telling are what outpictures as our life. So, in your lives, what's the story you tell about the story you're telling? Good question. Because we all have stories, and they're real stories. Those stories are facts. Stories of illness, stories of difficulty, financial difficulty, whatever it is, job not working out, relationship problems, all of those things. Those are stories. Those are facts. But there's a deeper truth. What's the story you tell about that story that you're telling? What is your choice? Because there's the point that we can make a difference in our own lives. What do you choose to tell about the facts that are going on in your life? I have truly experienced incredible generosity on so many different levels. We're living in the house of someone who just has included us in their household. There is no sense that we are outsiders in this house. Where did that come from? Right? I could tell that story. I could tell the story that I walk into the home that I've lived in for the last 10 years that the walls are gone. There's no walls, right? You can see straight through from one end of the apartment to the other. I could tell that story and I could keep telling it, right? It makes me miserable. So I'm choosing to be conscious about telling the story that I've discovered a world of generosity and kindness that I did not realize was there. Right? That's an ongoing story. We'll fix our house. We'll live back in that space. But there's a new story that I can tell of a discovery of a deeper level of kindness than I knew existed. Right? Do we choose to tell that story? Because for each of us, there is a choice, the story we tell. And what we learn very clearly in the Science of Mind is what outpictures in our lives is the story we tell ourselves within ourselves, right? The story we tell about the story we're telling. So there's the question. There's what we're welcoming you to right now. To look at the story you're telling about the story you're telling. That's where there's a choice. What choice do you make? I say, make the choice of the story of loving. And those aren't just words. They're real. Make the choice of the story of loving. Make the choice of the story that this universe is unlimited. There is no limit. No limit. Thomas Troward, Judge Thomas Troward, a great British writer about this philosophy, he wrote a thing called The Spirit of Opulence. And I always thought, why did he use the word opulence? What an odd word to use in a spiritual essay. But there is no limit. There is no limit. We can tell that story, a story of no limits. Opulence. That God, if we want to use that word, has no limit. Tell that story. See without pictures in your life. Is it easy? No, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it takes a conscious effort, and there are moments, when the only story I know how to tell is, oh my God, my world is gone. Right? But there's a little piece of my mind, because I do spiritual practice every day, focusing on creating the consciousness of the fullness of life, of the opulence. There's that part of my mind that goes, John, there's a better story to tell, because you're creating your own future right here, right now. So I welcome you to look at the stories you tell and to make a choice of a story that's going to create a life for yourself that will take you into the future. So welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Princeton, because this is what we teach here. Thank you very much.
Where within you do you seek silence? Where within you do you seek the peace? Could the answer be within the presence, or might it just be within? Where within you do you seek the knowing? Where within you do you seek the truth? Could the answer be within the questions, or might it just be a dream? I close my eyes and I take a breath. I know that it's always within. I close my eyes, I take a breath, I know it's always within. Where within you do you seek the knowing? Where within you do you seek the grace? Could the answer be within the moment? Might it just be within? Or might it just be within? Might it just be within?
Tapping off my head here. Here we go.
There we go.
Good morning. My name is Gary Torres, and I'm a licensed practitioner here at the Centers for Spiritual Living, Princeton. Today's topic is change, and the moment I heard that topic, I was reminded of a story that Eckhart Tolle, among others, have set forth in their writings. There are a lot of variations of it, and I'm not going to do the full story because you've probably heard it. Or maybe not, but the substance of it is that a man was living in the country, a fairly wealthy person for his village, and his father bought him a horse. And he rode out one day on the horse, and the horse saw a serpent in the road and reared up and threw him, and he broke his leg. Well, everybody in the town was saying, oh, this is just terrible, this person has a broken leg. The next day, it turns out that the country that this happened in was at war, and the next day the army comes through the town and conscripts everybody that's healthy. So the person with the broken leg gets to stay there and take care of things at home for everybody to the extent that he can and heal. And everybody's saying, oh, this is wonderful. Sometime later, the man's house burns down, and everybody says, this is just terrible, terrible thing that happened. And it turns out that the very next day, a land speculator comes into town and says he's looking for a spot in the center of this town to put up a business and is willing to pay a huge amount of money for this. So, long story short, he pays the son this huge sum. The son moves out to a much better place than he ever had. And everybody's saying how wonderful this is. Well, the point of this, and you can go on and on with this, but the substance of it is that things seem to sometimes happen to us, and we tend to evaluate, and people around us tend to evaluate these things as good, bad, indifferent, whatever, but you just never know where something is going to lead. And what we do know is that the entire series of events will lead you basically where you need to be. So I just wanted to tell that little story. I also wanted to do a little guided meditation, so if you'd relax, close your eyes if you can, if not if you're driving. And I want you to imagine that you are at your home and you walk out of your house and you notice that there's a crossroads fairly close to your house. You look around and nothing seems to be going on. You walk a little farther and you notice that there's a hill. You start climbing the hill and come up on top of the hill and you sit and look around and everything is beautiful and you're thinking how peaceful it is, how wonderful. And then you look back at the town and you say, I wonder what's going on in town. And you go back down the hill and approach your house, and there's still another crossroads that you didn't even know was there. And you look to your left and to your right, and in one direction there's this kind of party going on, everybody's happy and whatever. The other direction, it's very peaceful and quiet, and you say, this would be a lovely place to meditate. So you turn down one of those streets. It almost doesn't matter which one, but you've made a conscious decision that this is where you want to be next. And you start walking down that street. And you notice still another crossroads that you haven't seen. And you look left and right, and various things are going on. You decide where you want to be. And you walk on a little farther, and there's like a traffic circle with a dozen roads coming into it. And you say, well, I've been in this place for a while. Let me go back home. So you go back to your house, sit down, and you start thinking about all the choices that you've had and whether you've made right choices, wrong choices, as far as any intelligence. But you know that each time you came to a crossroads, something guided you to take a particular road. And this is something that we realize here, that each of us, we may not determine consciously that this is the place we want to be or that's the place we want to be, but we do know that we are faced with choices and that something is guiding us through these choices. In this frame of mind, I want you to, I'm going to do a spiritual mind treatment. There is only one power, one presence, one intelligence. It is this power, presence, and intelligence that is within each of us, each one listening to this treatment, and each one therefore has the power, the intelligence, the ability to make choices and to do the right thing, whether or not they consciously realize it. There's a consciousness that is greater than ours that guides us, and we know that that consciousness is in each one and is working through each one to do exactly the right thing. We let this word go to the law, knowing it is done, it is true, and the law takes these words and is already working on them, has been working on them even before they were spoken. So it is.
Here we all are, gathered together in this place. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What is its will? How do we know what's true and what's real? We may not know where life will lead. Doesn't matter long as we believe. God is the answer. God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. What's going on in this world today? Where do we fit? What do we do to make a difference? What can we say? Where do we go? This way or that way? If we all pray and truly believe and love one another, it makes the world see that God is the answer. God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. We may not know where life will lead us. It does not matter because we believe that God is the answer. God is the answer. God is the answer to whatever the question may be. So that's the answer.
That's the answer. We're done.
That's it. All right.
We are all done. So, okay, welcome. Hello. We've got some interesting people in the studio audience this morning. So, our topic this morning, another great topic recommended or asked by one of you out there in our virtual or personal audience. And the question boils down to, is change always good? And John shared the change that he's going through where, right, the change was, he had this beautiful home, set up everything perfectly, and then this flood came along and everything is completely destroyed. That's change. I had an, right? You would agree, that was change. I had an experience myself this past week where some physical symptom was moving through my body, changing everything that I was experiencing in my body, some within, some external, whatever, and, you know, flew right on an outback from whence it came. That was change, that was different. Was that good? And then Gary gave us that wonderful story about the farmer, and it looks like this is bad, but then because that happened, something good happened, but then because of that good something happened, something bad happened, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So is all change good or not? Yes, all change is good. That's it. Move forward. But obviously we need to be clearer about that. We are created by this one life. Call it God, call it the divine, call it the infinite presence. Something that is, and something that cannot and never does change. The infinite, the eternal, I am that I am, changeless, birthless, deathless, we call it the absolute. It is the nature of the divine, of spirit, to be what it is and nothing else. It's not growing. It's not shrinking. I am that I am. There's nothing more to be said. I am that I am. That is unchanging. And so if that were to change, that would be bad. So, all change is not necessarily good, because at the level of the absolute, if that were to change, then forget it, folks. We wouldn't even know it. We'd all be destroyed already. I am that I am can never change. You can always say it in yourself. You can always say, I am. And those words, I am, and all that is behind it as potential is. The potential of good contained within I am doesn't change. It's infinite potential. It's always there. But what does always change is the way it's expressed. I am that expression. Always changing. It is, we call it the world of the relative, not the absolute. The absolute, there's no relationship in the absolute. I am. That's it. It's all. There's no separation. There's no division. There's no me and God. There's only I am. It's all unchanging. And yet it's creating a world of relationship, and it is the nature of relationship to always change. It must. You cannot imagine the universe as unchanging. We know that every single object in the universe, no matter how big or how teeny, is changing its relationship with everything else. Even if everything in the universe stayed in its spot and only one thing was changing, then each thing in the universe would have its relationship to that one changing thing changing. So it's changing. Everything changes. Everything changes. But there is no every I am. One I am, unchanging. So, our experience of life is continuous, unceasing change. And you can imagine why I concocted one of my favorite affirmations that I continue to use, which is, I am moving from good to greater good. I thought about this. I mean, maybe somebody said it before me and I didn't hear it, but I really remember thinking about it, going, okay, everything is moving, and I can't change that fact that I am moving. But if I am moving, if I'm moving from good to greater good, then I'm not going to care that I'm moving away from the good, because I'm moving into the greater good. And so I use that as an affirmation to help me navigate the changes that happen to me and around me and in my world and by me. If I'm going to be changing, then let me know for myself that the change is good. Well, this actually has a beginning in this little book. It's called On Eagle's Wings by Lord Martin Cecil, and it happens to be the book that a group was reading, which began my spiritual journey, which ended up to where I am right now. And this particular essay by Lord Martin Cecil is called The Wheel, and I've mentioned it before, where he has you visualize a giant wheel in front of you, giant wheel, and the wheel is turning. And imagine yourself at one point of the wheel. Let me put the wheel here. Okay, so the wheel's moving here, and I'm here looking up at this point of the wheel, and your particular experience is that point of the circumference of the wheel, which you are in connection with, but this wheel is the changing environment or the changing natural process of the universe or of life. You want to think of the center of that wheel, right? That core of the wheel. If you could see it, you can't. But if you could imagine it, the very center of the wheel is unchanging. It's right there. It doesn't move. But everything revolves around that center. And our experience of this wheel of changing expression of life is wherever we are at that circumference. And that's what we call our experience of change. I'm here, and there's the wheel. So now we'll imagine the wheel's above me, right? There it is. I really like this spot. This is good. I'm going to grab it. Stay. I want to stay here as long as possible. Parents, you know this, right? You're looking into your brand new baby's eyes. You're like, oh my God, keep that. I want that forever, right? I want this. Oh, I remember when I was holding my niece Kimberly. I just had that thought, forever. I want to just be rocking in this rocking chair and holding her and looking at her forever. And we know that's not real. That's not true. And that I wouldn't. You all know. You've experienced it, right? I was with my cat the other day. We were in the perfect cuddle position. She was cuddled up next to me. I'm petting her. It was wonderful. Darn, I had to go to the bathroom. You know, but I know if I move, she's going to move. And that's it for the moment. And she hardly ever cuddles up with me anymore. But, you know, let me stay as long as I can. Hold on to the changing wheel. Whereas the wheel is moving in my body, and apparently it moved in her body too, because she got up first and said, you know, I'm done with you. And she went off about her business. Ah, darn. The moment is past. And with our wisdom, we know that our greater good demands that the moment pass. We know that. No matter how long we want to hold that baby, we know that if they did not grow and stayed there, it would not be good. And I actually knew a family who for some reason got into their head that their kid wasn't growing. You don't want to go there. They were so worried about it, the child's measurements. Well, I was like, leave that kid alone. And that's what Lord Martin Cecil says. Let the wheel of life move. It has to move to be healthy. Everything must change. It's its nature. If it did not change, that non-changing experience would be unhealthy and would be bad for us. We wouldn't like it. And so what will work for us when we are looking at any situation where we don't want it to change, where we want to stay with it forever, is we want to realize that our perspective is too short. And as Lord Martin Cecil says, this is moving away from us, but I want it, come back. But we're busy over here, looking here, and we can't see what's on its way toward us. And yes, it's different, but that's what life naturally and normally is changing into. And it's coming toward us because it is for us. I mean, this wheel that's coming around, we've got a number of people in the room, and each one of you, we're all grabbing it at this certain point, and it all seems at this certain point, all you out there in the virtual audience, right? We can all grab it, and it seems like we're all at the same point on that circumference, but we're not, right? Each one of us is having a completely different experience. And so what will come to each one of us next on that wheel is different. It's unique. And it's for us. Now here's the thing. Lord Martin Cecil says that this natural movement of life is unfolding or evolving itself in healthier, better, happier, more wonderful ways. We look at the universe and everything is expanding. But in its expansion, right, everything maintains a healthy relationship with everything else. But within that expansion, each one also has a greater possibility for freedom of choice. We look at just the change in the human race and its movement. And boy, there's been some, right, moments that were painful, excruciating, and horrible. And yet, those moments happened and they have passed. And what has been produced after those moments is for us to decide whether it's greater good or not. Every time I use soap or water, I'm so grateful, because I know there was a time when you had to make your own soap and cart your own water, and I know that there's some areas of the world where it's difficult to get water. I'm so grateful for all of the movement that has happened in the human race that is allowing me to experience greater freedom and ease in living my life right now. I am grateful for this. And so I know that there have been people who have suffered in the past, my ancestors, and because they have, changes have been made that I am blessed and benefited by now. What we want to remember is whether we are judging a particular change as good or bad depends upon our perspective. When we're looking in the short run, like this gorgeous, gorgeous day, right? I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, forever. My prayer partner, Friday morning, he says, oh, we're in for 10 great days. I'm like, oh, 10 great days. Well, he's in Tennessee, so 10 great days in Tennessee. And I'm like, yeah, in New Jersey too, 10 great days. But I know that those great days can only be those great days because we've had rainy days, because we've had unsettled weather, that is all needed for these great days and all the great good that is occurring to happen. So it depends. If it's only a one-day perspective, I want today, my picnic is today, I want the weather to be great. But if what you want is delicious New Jersey tomatoes, you want the days with the rain and with the sun and with the variety, and you want whatever the climate needs to be for the most luscious tasting Jersey tomatoes that could possibly be grown. We want all that. And so that longer perspective is always going to produce for us that ability to actually notice the greater good that happened because of it. I keep thinking about our world shutdown that we had right at the beginning. Remember those first 3 months when everything was shut down? And the good that happened because of it. And it was very interesting. And I don't know why I haven't noticed more press about it, but there was evidence that the ozone layer was healing that fast? Now, it's probably all ripped up again as we've moved back into our old habits. I don't know. But that information was there. We have that information. We're going to need that information. This is gold, that information. Well, I don't like being stuck and all this and that. And then, oh my gosh, all the people who have directly suffered. Yeah. Not my choice. However, there's something that we found out that maybe is going to be the way for a whole lot of world suffering not to happen in the future. That's gold. It cannot be denied. Would we have known that before? People say it, but would we have believed them? Given the state of the situation, I doubt it. If someone said, look, all we have to do is shut everything down for 3 months and everything will be healed. The Arctic mass will, refreeze, blah, blah, blah. I mean, would you believe it? Probably not. But to have evidence that things on the world level can be reversed from the damage that humans have fed into it, that's gold. That's gold. And that's a very long viewpoint to take. It's a viewpoint of life that is beyond my personal lifetime. It's something that needs to be known for life expressing as humanity to move from good to greater good. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, who knows how many years from now. But it's important information. And we have it because something awful, horrific happened. There is good. Emma Curtis Hopkins tells us, well, there is good for me. And to declare it in this moment of whatever is coming. It's like your greatest good of all time is moving away from you, but to claim that what's on its way, this too is God, this too is good, this too is for me, and I demand to see the blessing in it. And with the blessing in it moving away, it may be what's coming instead. And then I demand to see the good in it. What's the good in it? The other thing about Lord Martin Cecil is he says that this natural movement of the relative world, that there is a rightness to it. It's somehow harmoniously moving in a way that will increase the expression of life. And what he points out to us says that our whole experience of the movement of life can change that by our very own recognition that the life that is moving through us now is moving through us rightly, or that we are in harmony with that which is, or in agreement with that which is moving toward us, or we are promoting it, furthering the good that's in it. Going back to this huge wheel, he showed to his audience when he was giving this talk, he used a movie reel. So remember back in those days, right, you have this big giant movie reel with the tape coming off of it, and we're the projector at this point reading the reel. And somehow what John and Gary said seemed to be a part of this. Yes, right? Here's life moving, its world, its relative. And at that point where we are seeing, where we are in contact with it, we have the ability to imprint ourselves, to add ourselves to the tape. That it's moving through, coming toward us without our addition. But it's coming to us at a particular point in order for us to add our thoughts, our feelings, our experience to it. So that what is now leaving us isn't just a good experience that we had untouched by us, but that what is leaving us is affected by our experience of it. In other words, that we are here to add to the story that the divine is naturally bringing through into the world. That this was the story so far before it got to me. As practitioners, we're well versed in this. A client comes to us, blah, 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 and you're like, yeah. And they got x-rays, and they've got a diagnosis, and they've got, printouts, and, and I'm immediately saying, yeah, that was all before it got to me. You better get retested. Because that was the story until I got to add my 2 cents to it. And my 2 cents is spiritual truth. So that which continues on is a completely different picture. And that's where we can really rise to our full experience of what is possible for us in living life. That we aren't here to be an observer, a witnesser, or a victim of what's moving through us, getting trampled by it, affected by it, and, right? Adding nothing, taking away nothing, as if we weren't even there. It could have happened to anybody. No, we are there to add who we are to the story. And that's our purpose. That's the purpose of our life. It's going to move, continuously move. But the I am, that is each one of us, that essential self that we are, is changeless. And it's expressing in a whole host of perspectives. It could be expressing as that parent, I want you now, and you can never change forever. This is it. Or it can be, woohoo! Let the carousel keep on turning. Or it could be, hold on, come back. You're going to have to leave me kicking and screaming, Or it can be, whoa, that looks really good. Hurry up, whatever. Or it could be to realize it is the nature of life's expression to continuously be changing, and right here, now, with what's right in my experience, right here, now, I am here now, and I leave my fingerprint on it. So whoever is experiencing it as it moves around has a different story than the story I got. Back then when we used to play telephone, can we even play that game anymore? I don't know. Because we've all got cell phones. Everybody simultaneously. What do you mean whisper one by one? Right? Remember you used to, let me tell you, blah, 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 blah. Here's the story. And then Reverend Rich tells, Deja. And then Deja tells Gary. And Gary tells John. And then when John announced what it was, you're all like, what? That had nothing to do with it. Well, now we can accomplish all that in one cell phone call. Just one Zoom call. Here's what I said. You get 17 different hearings of what was said. But that's it. You're part of the chain of life. What that good question to ask yourself, instead of, is change always good for me, which is very narrow in perspective, right? I mean, for me, is this change always good? Well, I hurt really, really bad today. Okay, but is this change really good? We shall see. I choose to believe, yeah, it's good. Might not, right? There's that other old story. With all this manure in the barn, there must be a pony in here somewhere, right? So there is good for me. But see, instead of thinking, I don't like the change, I don't want this kind of change, it's all about little I, me. Instead of saying, whoa, I am here to add my fingerprint to the expression of life whenever and wherever I touch it, which is always. Then, what are you going to do with this marvelous situation that's in front of you right now? Doesn't matter whether it's a situation where people are running around screaming and yelling, or whether people are running around cheering in victory. It's about you. And what are you going to add to that story? The 100,000 people running and screaming and yelling in fear, and the other 100,000 people running and screaming out of joy, how do they add to the story? Well, there were 100,000 people this way and another 100,000 that people, but right somewhere else, there was you. And what are you adding? This is what makes life amazing. To realize, well, if we don't like the moment, well, it'll pass. If it's a moment someone else doesn't like, well, I'm not agreeing with you. It's going to pass for good. It's going to be greater good. That's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. If it's just one of our usual situations, just another perfect day, what can I add to it? Not what can I get out of it? What can I add to it? I had a wonderful, blessed experience yesterday. I drove to the park, had my breakfast all nice and hot, ready to go, and a gentleman in the car next to me, comes over. Do you have jumper cables? And I was like, oh, geez, I got my food here, blah, 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 blah. Who the hell are you? He's like, I slept in my car all night. And I'm like, oh, my God, I want to hear this horrible story, whatever. Yeah, I got jumper cables, whatever. And, of course, I helped him, and, it was just, just that joy of his car starting up, and he looked a mess. He looked like he did spend the night at the park in his car. But it started right up, and he just zipped out of there, and I put my jumper cables back in my car, and I had my breakfast, and I read my book, and I had a wonderful time. And then that second joy of starting my own car up afterwards, right? Because you all know, like, oh, did it drain your own battery? But no, I was making up my own story. It was like, no, you cannot be bringing more good into the world and have it not be good for you. My good is multiplied. And so, of course, my car worked wonderfully, and so did his, and da-da-da-da-da. So, I mean, out of all these minutes of the day, with all these different points of the wheel coming toward you, it was like, okay, I had one moment where my fingerprint was good. I added to the world. First of all, the park police blesses me, because they didn't have to deal with somebody who was there for forever, whatever. And he blessed me, and his family who greeted him are blessing me, and I'm blessing me, and now all of you bless me, because I'm a wonderful person. I gave someone jumper cables, and my car's battery, whatever, voltage, whatever, it all worked, whatever. One moment. in 24 hours. But it's so much, right? We love to help. We love adding our stamp on it. Right? We don't love adding our dirt to it, right? How much of this the world expression that's coming around, you're just getting your hand in some mud and just smearing it along the projection reel. Don't want to remember those moments, right? But maybe each one of us, being the spiritually aware beings that we are, what we're doing with that reel is we've got a bottle of Windex and we're squirting on each photo, cleaning it so everybody can see it with even greater clarity. I don't know. But oh gosh, there's too much opportunity, right? Always present for us to just let it pass by without our stamp, without our contribution. So is change always good? Yes. Unless it was God that's changing, in which case that's bad. But we wouldn't know, so we don't have to worry about that because God doesn't change. It's the expression of the divine that is always changing. And so it's always God expressing more God. It's got to be good. And also as us, it's always me expressing more me, you expressing more you. You are goodness. So it's always more good. And then say it. Lord Martin Season says, the simple expedient of recognizing that life is moving rightly through you now would allow you in your intelligence to associate yourself with the movement so that what was expressed on the basis of a concern for its rightness and fittingness with respect to the particular circumstance, which is what the opportunity for moving life is about. He says, here's his advice, homework. Agree with life. Agree quickly. And let whatever it is that is moving through you of life in the moment be freely given because you are no longer concerned with any getting. You are only concerned with participating in the ongoingness of life, participating for the better. So Karen, right, you know me and my resistance to change, agree. Quickly. Agree. And as soon as you do, how can I add? How can I contribute? What can I give? What can I do with this moment? Right? Many of you here in the audience are chefs, cooks, whatever. You know, you open up a cupboard, right? You know that great show Chopped? They open up the basket, and no matter what they've got in there, they've got to make something delicious. That's our lives. Boy, isn't that good? No matter what you see, you're going to make something wonderful out of it. At least once a day. At least once a day. Right? All right, so let's contemplate all that as we move forward because it's time for this service to change into being not the service. So, Reverend Rich, lead us in some great song.
It takes a crane to build a crane. It takes 2 floors to make a story. It takes an egg to make a hen. It takes a hen to make an end. There is no end to what I'm saying. It takes a thought to make a word. It takes some words to make an action. It takes some work to make it work. It takes some good to make it hurt. It takes some bad for satisfaction. Ah, la 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 la, life is wonderful. Ah, la 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 la, life goes full circle. Ah, la 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 la, life is wonderful. Ah, la 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 la. It takes some cold to know the sun. It takes one to have another. It takes some time to fall in love. It takes some years to know what love is. I got all messed up here. Ah, la 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 la, life is wonderful. Ah, la la la, life goes full circle. Ah, la 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 la, life is wonderful. Ah, la 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 la. Ah, la la la, life is wonderful. Ah, la 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 la, life goes full circle. Ah, la la la, life is wonderful. Ah, la 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 la. That's enough.
That's enough. Dot, dot, dot. See, that's what dot, dot, dots are for, right? Dot, dot, dot. The end. Dot, dot, dot. We hate shows that end like that, right? You're, ah! Okay, wait for the next season. All right, so this word is being spoken for each one. There is only one life, changeless, deathless, birthless, eternal, infinite, immortal, that one great, loving presence, I am that I am. And because it is infinite and eternal, it is continuously and forever creating an expression of itself. And all that it has created is as nothing to all that it will and can possibly create. And each one here is that same combination of that great I am that I am, changeless, birthless, eternal, and yet continuously expressing itself. And so each one is now aware that each one is at the core, at the source, at that level of the absolute, unchanging goodness. Perfect, whole, and complete. And that the expression of this all goodness is always in a generous, wonderful, abundant variety of life. And in every single aspect of it, each one is there to bring out of the infinite potential of themselves that unique stamp of individuality that he or she is into the situation, forever changing it and moving it into a direction that is even more wonderful and more good than anything that it ever was prior to being touched by one's own touch. Each one is a blessing to this world of relativeness. Each one is a blessing through which all that is changing is changed into greater good. Each one knows this and enjoys this and is proud of this and delights in seeing that stream of greater good that follows each one's path as a result of that conscious, intentional interaction with the circumstances that life provides, making out of it something even more wonderful than what would have occurred without one's own presence. Each one's a blessing, and know it, and uses it. And the world is better for this. I am grateful that this is so. I release this word to the law. It is done, and so it is. Reverend Rich. All right, I was waiting for somebody to start singing The Impossible Dream. All right, so good morning, Raul Marquis. Oh, she's everywhere. Okay, Mary, hello. Are you guys back yet? Okay, Joe, welcome. Cheryl and Eric, welcome. Robert, Craig from Thailand, that's right. All right, oh, Michael said spotty internet. All right, hopefully everybody got it. Okay, I think that's it for it, so I'm going to shut us down. All right, goodbye, folks. See you next Sunday. Da-da-da-da.